Hey guys, welcome back to another History of Steam Locomotives video. Today we are going to be talking about the history of all four surviving Reading T1 Northerns. Those being numbered 2100, 2101, 2102, and 2124. Let's get into this. Starting off with the Reading Rambles, the 2100 and her other sister engines were the 2100. Okay, here we go. So in the late Reading years, the Reading Railroad extended the Reading Rambles, which are which became the Reading T1 excursion program, featuring their engines 2100, 2123, 2124, and 2102. While 2101 would be kept as a donor locomotive, but never run. And I mean, but the 2123 was sent for scrap. So the Reading Rambles were 2100, 2101, 2102, and 2124. Let's start off with the 2124. The 2124 entered steam excursion service on the late Reading Railroad for the Reading Railroad's excursion program called the Reading Rambles, and it ran very well until a few years later it was retired and put into the it was donated to Steamtown, where she resides today. 2102, on the other hand, has a little bit brighter. The three other T-Hogs, all right. And also, guys, let's get back. And after the 2124 was retired, it was put into the Steamtown Museum, where she resides today. The two other T-Hogs have had their ups and downs as well. 2102, 2101, and 2100 had a really great excursion career. But first, let's talk about 2102s. 2102 was built for the Reading was entered excursion service for the Reading Rambles as well, until it was donated to the Blue Mountain Reading Railroad to be a running mate to Blue Mountain Reading Northern number 425. The 2102 ran very well over the years, and it became a really powerful locomotive, even being a running mate to 425. But just like all the other engines, the 2102 before that, the 2102 made a few more excursion runs, even for the Reading Rambles and the Blue Mountain Reading Railroad. But sadly, a few years later, the 2102 was retired, and the engine was put out of service due to its fuel expiration. Unfortunately, all hope was not lost for the 2102, as the Blue Mountain Reading Railroad took the engine apart and put it into their steam shop, and it was put in there for a rebuild. The 2102 was looked at very carefully. It was really carefully examined. The locomotive was looked at from miles. They checked the headlamp, they checked everything. After a few weeks of restoration, the engine looked like a shell of its former self, looking torn apart, but also still being rebuilt. It took so long, and it looked like it was going to take a lot of years for its rebuild to be completed. Until on April 2022, the 2102 finally steamed up, and she will be making more memories very soon this year. The two other T-Hogs have had their ups and downs as well. 2102 being kept... The two other T-Hogs have had their ups and downs as well. Okay, well, since the 2102 has been rebuilt, the two other T-Hogs, 2101 and 2100, have had their ups and downs as well. 2101 was put into the strike. 2101. Alright, now it's time for 2101. 2101 and 2100 were both in the same scrapyard. And if they were not moved out of there, they would be scrapped. Unfortunately, they were able to be saved. And 2101 was required. They required it for the American Freedom Train program. And then 2101 emerged as in a new dress as American Freedom Train number 1. After that excursion ended, the 2101 was renumbered back to her original identity, number 2101, but this time painted in chassis system colors for the chassis steam special. The 2101 made a great amount of excursion runs, even if it was just a chassis system engine. And then after that run, before its sixth run, that night, the engine was put into a roundhouse with a lot of other engines on its own. But unfortunately, that roundhouse caught fire, and 2101 was badly damaged. And so, the 2101 was rebuilt, but not into her original Reading, number 2101, and not chassis 2101, but rebuilt as American Freedom Train number 1. And she was put into a museum, where she resides today. And hopefully, the 2101 and the 2124 will be rebuilt very soon. 2100 was not as lucky as the other three. She spent more of her time out of service than she did under steam. She stayed there for a long time until the 2100 was rebuilt and returned to service. Then, at the time, she was owned by Richard Kuhn, the owner of CEO of Lionel Trains. Unfortunately, Kuhn's ownership with the locomotive didn't last long, so she was given to Thomas Paine for his steam excursion program. But now, guys, Thomas Paine is looked down upon by a lot of people and others, including myself. Why? Well, because what he did to the 2100 was just unacceptable. I mean, it looks good. It looks like a Norfolk Western J-Class or whatever, but it's not that kind of a good engine. And also, he also wrote the letter put on the tender for Heroicus. I don't know what that means. And the 2100 was also converted to burn oil, which ruined the heritage and damaged the performance, because Reading engines never burn oil. The 2100 did, at least the 2100 was able to, the 2100 was able to run. It ran very well until it kept running excursion runs until it was retired. But before its retirement, it was able to make more excursion runs. But before that time happened, after those excursion runs, after a lot of excursion runs and test runs, the engine was sidelined. And it was taken apart and torn apart. And it also, I don't know if the engine was left there on a siding, waiting to be picked up and taken to a museum, or waiting to be scrapped or something. But all hope is not lost for 2100, because the American Steam Railroad launched a project called Fire Up 2100 to get the 2100 under steam again. But instead of having her read and have that and instead of having her tender being lettered to Feroicus, they decided to replace it with Reading. And the 2100 was taken apart, and they announced that instead of having it burn different special oil, they are now going to convert it back into burning coal. So now, very soon, we will see the 2100 and all of its glory return to service very soon. And the 2100 is still in the shops right now, and with a few more of its updates, the 2100 might return to service later this year. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. This was definitely a long one. And what are your thoughts on the Reading T1s? Are y'all excited for 2100 and 2102's return to service? And also, what are y'all's thoughts on 2101 and 2124? Do you think that those two engines should be rebuilt? Leave a comment. Anyways, guys, I know, guys, that this took a while for me to make. But guys, I'll see you later, guys, and I'll see you next time when we discuss the one and only engine of the Norfolk and Western Railroad, the sole survivor of the Class A's, Norfolk and Western Class A number 1218. See you guys later, and keep on steaming.